WWE is all about moments, and in 2024, we've already had an incredible amount of amazing moments, with the most recent being the return of the original Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, which got me thinking, what are my favorite returns in WWE history? Starting off with 3 honorable mentions, one of the most recent ones is Rhea Ripley's return to Raw to confront Dom and to confront Liv. And I know it's very recent, recency bias, but Rhea Ripley is an absolute star. She's a freaking beast, and she's one of my favorite female wrestlers currently, becoming a babyface through just being away. Her and Damian Priest together with the Terror Twins. I'm excited to see what happens with Rhea Ripley. Another honorable mention is the Hardy Boys' return to WrestleMania 33 with one of the loudest pops ever in WrestleMania history, entered themselves into a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Championship at WrestleMania 33 and was able to stay around for a little bit, but unfortunately their run was hindered by injuries, but nothing can take away that historic return at WrestleMania. Last for my honorable mentions are when the Dudley Boys returned in 2015. Great return, not a great run after the fact, but nothing can take away that return in Brooklyn where they went absolutely ballistic for the Dudley Boys to return, where they confronted the New Day, attacked the New Day with one of the loudest get the tables you will ever hear. And now we go to my official list of my 10 favorite returns of all time. With number 10, the return of Shawn Michaels in 2002. Now listen, this is going to be a very unpopular take here, but growing up, I never really liked Shawn Michaels. I was not a fan of him. I didn't understand the character. I thought he was just basically like a male stripper. I didn't appreciate Shawn Michaels until way later in life when I was much older. Honestly, once he stopped wrestling is when I started to actually appreciate all the things that he's done. Shawn Michaels is easily, if not one, he's number 2, the greatest in-ring performer of all time. So I didn't understand when I was younger the magnitude of Shawn Michaels' return after being away for 4 years because of a back injury. Granted, his return itself wasn't the crazy part about him returning and joining the NWO, because the NWO was absolutely nothing. But this was the start of Shawn Michaels, I think his better of the 2 careers that he had. I think this was his better run, but this was the start of an amazing second chance, a second run in WWE with Shawn Michaels, with having some of his best matches of his entire career with The Undertaker, with Triple H, and with so many more. And then we got number 9, the return of Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 38. I didn't understand the super hype around Cody Rhodes at the time when he actually returned. I was hyped for it because I knew of the things that he was doing on the indie scene, and then the whole thing with AEW, which was awesome. The Cody Rhodes that I knew growing up was that corny kid, dusty son, Stardust, everything you've ever heard about Cody Rhodes that he talks about himself, even in like his documentaries and stuff like that. To see that guy become the top guy in WWE in just 2 years' times is amazing. And he needed that break. He needed that long time away from WWE to become the actual star that he knew he was. With Cody Rhodes' return at WrestleMania 38 against Seth Rollins, this led into the eventual Bloodline story and to where we are now with 2 of some of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time, with Cody versus Roman Reigns. It's just cool to see because that cemented Cody as a legit main eventer, and to see him be who he wanted to be is awesome. Number 8, the return of Brock Lesnar in 2012, the night after WrestleMania 28. Absolute craziness. I never thought growing up that I would ever see Brock Lesnar back in a WWE ring. He dominated his first run for 2 years straight, just murdering everybody. Had a very, very sour way of leaving the WWE because he just didn't want to do it anymore. He was tired of it and he wanted to try other things. To then see him go and become a UFC heavyweight champion, which was absolutely crazy because everybody thought, oh, well, he's a wrestler, he can't really fight. To prove all those doubters wrong and see what he was able to become, to then come back and be a dominant force from 2012, basically up until last year. By the end, people got very tired of it because he was barely on TV, hogging championships and stuff like that. But his first initial run, like that 2012 to like maybe 2016 run, was pretty awesome. Then we have number 7, the return of Roman Reigns, the most recent return on this list. It could be recency bias, but it's really not, because when you put it into context of everything, Roman Reigns finally got the pop and the support that him and WWE has been looking for the last 10 years. With Roman's first run as babyface, WWE tried so hard to make him the next top guy, and the fans just would not do it. They would reject it. They had wanted nothing to do with Roman Reigns because he was just forced down our throats for so many years. I liked Roman Reigns from the very beginning, but I could totally understand why people were sick of him and didn't want to see him be that guy. They just wanted him to be him, and instead WWE was trying to make him the new John Cena, and it just was not working. And they did everything they possibly could. They brought The Rock back. They made Triple H the freaking WWE champion. They did everything they possibly could to make people support Roman Reigns, and it just didn't happen. Even when Roman Reigns had leukemia and came back, they were happy to have him for only a couple weeks before it turned back into just the same old shit. So then Roman Reigns left and then returned in 2020 as the top heel, became who he became in the Tribal Chief, with one of the greatest stories ever told, where people were actually supporting him more being a heel and just Roman being and doing the things that he wanted to do and was doing it his way. to then finally the build up to WrestleMania 40, the epic build up to WrestleMania 40, like monumental, most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life, to then losing his championship after a 3.5-year run, to then being nowhere to be found for months, to the point where people were begging and pleading for Roman Reigns to return, especially with the little shit Solo Sikoa running around trying to take over and be the Roman Reigns, and it's just, it's not even comparable. OG Bloodline is so much better than the Bloodline 2.0. It's just Bloodline from Temu. Roman Reigns' run was so good that he became a babyface by just not being there. So when he finally did return, he got the ovation that he's been looking for years. And we are finally in a new era where Roman Reigns is the babyface that he always wanted to be, and he's being the guy that he always wanted to be. He's going to be some type of anti-hero, not just like this white meat babyface like we see kind of like with Cody Rhodes. He's going to be some type of anti-hero, and I'm all for it. And even though he's number 7 on my list, as this goes on and his story continues to be told, this ranking could definitely move up. Number 6, we have Triple H's return in 2002 from his quad injury, where he returned in Madison Square Garden. And there's not much I really need to say. Just go back and watch it. His return entrance is like 5 minutes long, and MSG is going absolutely ballistic for 5 straight minutes. And this was the return leading into the Royal Rumble, leading into him winning the Royal Rumble and going on and fighting Chris Jericho for both titles at WrestleMania. Not saying that main event was great, but his return was awesome, and this led into him eventually becoming champion and then losing it to Hulk Hogan, which is crazy. But then this gave him the time to eventually turn heel and eventually feud with Shawn Michaels, who was also returning, which was on this list, and have some of the best matches, some of my favorite matches of all time. And a Triple H return is always awesome, but having it in Madison Square Garden just makes it that much better. And with the crowd ovation, it's awesome. It's one of my favorites. Number 5, this will always be one of my favorites no matter what, is when The Rock returned in 2011 to be the host of WrestleMania 27 to eventually set up one of my favorite feuds and one of my favorite matches of all time with The Rock versus John Cena. The Rock was always my favorite. He's been my favorite since I was a little kid. But when he left and did the movies, I honestly never thought that he would come back. I never thought that he would wrestle again. And I wasn't on like wrestling forums and stuff like that because I was like 8, 9, 10, 11. Like I wasn't doing that. So I kind of fell out of love with wrestling after like 2006-ish. So I never really cared until The Rock came back. And then I vividly remember it was a middle school basketball game. We got absolutely destroyed. And I got home. I was pissed off. My dad was like, hey, check the computer. And it was like on Google or whatever. And it was a link to The Rock's return. And I watched it and it was freaking awesome. And that's immediately what got me back into wrestling. So that return set up so much stuff going forward. It set up The Rock at WrestleMania. It set up The Rock and John Cena feud, which is still one of my favorite feuds. It's a year-long feud that led to once in a lifetime, which eventually led to twice in a lifetime. And it was just awesome to see because I never, ever thought The Rock would be back. Number 4, we have Edge's return at Royal Rumble 2020. And I don't really have to say much for this. This was such an emotional return. Nobody ever thought Edge was going to wrestle again. He had his neck injury and had to retire in 2011, only to come back 9 years later and return at the Royal Rumble in 2020. And thank God the Royal Rumble is in January and not like in March, because Edge deserved that huge ovation. He deserved that huge pop. And I love going back and looking at it because you could see the emotion in his face to the point where he's just like, holy shit, like 1, I'm here. 2, they remember me, and 2, they missed me. Him walking through the smoke is just such a cool thing to see because I don't think that's the character Edge. That is Adam Copeland just soaking it all in before he kind of kicks back into character and gets into set where he has to do like his whole thing. It's just such an emotional return, something that you never thought you would see, and it was just so cool to see. Number 3 is Stone Cold Steve Austin's return at Backlash 2000, and to this day, I say it all the time, I wish this was the main event of WrestleMania 16 because it would have been one of the best WrestleMania matches ever, in my opinion. That match itself is one of my favorites ever, where it was The Rock versus Triple H and all of the McMahons in their corner. There's like absolutely no way that The Rock could win. There was nothing that The Rock could do. They had everything against The Rock. But Linda McMahon came back and said that The Rock needs someone in his corner because it's not fair. And it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the most heated rivals up to that point, which we would get even more later, which is crazy. But before the match, the McMahons come out and say that Stone Cold isn't here. And The Rock and Triple H put on a great match, but at some point, it's just too much for The Rock. The Rock is outnumbered and he can't do anything. They are doing everything they can to beat The Rock. You got the Briscoes out. You got Vince McMahon out. Shane McMahon is there. He's their special guest referee. He's outmatched, outnumbered. They are just decimating The Rock. And then the glass breaks. Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out with a chair, raising hell, beating the shit out of everyone. The crowd is going absolutely ballistic. He eliminates everybody in the ring except The Rock, and I love the way they did it because it's not like they were like full-blown friends. Stone Cold just returned and did exactly what he had to do, and that was take out the McMahons and take out Triple H. The Rock hits the people's elbow, pins him, and becomes the WWE WWF champion. It's awesome. The crowd is going nuts. This should have been The Rock standing tall at WrestleMania, but Stone Cold's neck injury was still too severe for him to return at WrestleMania, so they had to push it back, and they did it at Backlash. And in second place on this list is The Rock's return in 2024. Because at first it was very, very rocky and very, very bumpy, but we got to where we needed to go to have one of the best runs of The Rock's career. The Rock returned at Raw Day 1, announcing that he was looking to sit at the head of the table, which was awesome, until Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble. And everybody was like, well, we want Cody to win, so what do we do now? So then Cody steps aside, and The Rock again returns to then confront Roman Reigns, which led to one of the craziest things ever on social media in terms of WWE, to where the We Want Cody movement started. And basically, the fans forced Cody back into the main event, and it forced The Rock to turn heel, which is one of the coolest things they've ever been able to do. The Rock was a heel in 2024. It's just so crazy because The Rock is a man who people would push to be the president of the United States of America, and he would probably get a decent amount of votes. Regardless of politics aside, The Rock was the legitimate candidate going forward. People ask him all the time. So to see a potential president of the United States come back, be a heel, a top heel in this company, being called the final boss, being on the board, basically being in control of everything and everyone, to have some of his best work and his best promos in years. This dwarfs his return in 2011. It crushes it because we got new material. We got old school Rock with this fancy shirts and the sunglasses, calling people trailer park trash, talking shit to the crowd, talking shit to everybody, to the point where people are now pushing for The Rock and Cody Rhodes to fight, because at some point they do want to fight. And I know that at some point we're going to get Roman Reigns versus The Rock, but I would absolutely love to see Cody Rhodes versus The Rock as well. This return led into one of the greatest build-ups to a WrestleMania main event of all time. And then the payoff at the very end with the great tag match at night 1 to the fantastic main event in night 2. Like perfect main event. When you say I love pro wrestling, that match is exactly what pro wrestling is. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns are putting on an absolute clinic to then have the spot fest and return fest of everybody that came back in that match. That is one of my favorite main events ever. Like, I don't care if it's recency bias or whatever. I was there, and seeing it there live was amazing. But it all started when The Rock returned on the very first day, January 1st in 2024. And without that, none of this happens. And it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite characters The Rock has ever done. It's up there with 2000's Rock. It's literally 2000's Rock and the Final Boss, which I love the Final Boss. He's dropping F-bombs. He's making people bleed. He's saying shit. Everything's getting bleeped out. He is 100% him, and he was able to 100% be the character that he wanted to be. And eventually, the Final Boss is going to return, and I'm so here for it. And my number one return of all time is CM Punk. Do I need to speak or explain about any of this? This is something that I never, ever thought would happen. I never, ever thought we would see this ever again. I never thought CM Punk would ever be back in the WWE. He's been back since last November, and every time he's on the screen and I'm watching, I still cannot believe that I'm seeing this. The fact that I got to watch him at SummerSlam was awesome. He performed and stood up to the plate and knocked it out of the park. CM Punk is still CM Punk, which is awesome. But it was also just so exciting because I remember the speculation for like the last month leading into that of people asking like, yo, is he going to return? Is he not going to return? There was so many mixed reports to the point where it almost was confirmed that CM Punk is not signing with WWE. So the buildup and the anticipation that whole night of, is he going to return? Like, when is he going to, like, what's going to happen? And within the last, like, 2 minutes of the show, they even showed, like, the end card thing at the bottom of the screen where you're like, damn, it's over. And then the static hits, and everybody's going absolutely ballistic. And I vividly remember I was sitting in my basement watching. I jumped up, and my ceiling is low, and I hit my head so hard because I was so hyped for the return of CM Punk. But if you know the history of CM Punk and why he left WWE in the first place, it's absolutely mind-blowing that he would ever return. There have been so many times where they've asked about him returning to WWE. He says, absolutely not. Never again. He talks so much shit about the WWE, which I think there are points and stuff where he has his grievances and it's totally justified. I do think he has some of his own issues too. I totally get why he would want to leave with all the injuries, all the concussions, and then just dealing with Vince McMahon and Triple H. They did not have a great relationship. To then be in 2023 at Survivor Series in Chicago, the day that hell froze over, with one of the craziest pictures ever with CM Punk hugging Triple H. It is absolutely crazy to ever see that. CM Punk did return, but to AEW. I thought that was as far as it was going to go. And without Hangman Adam Page and all the shit that happened in AEW, we would have never gotten to this. So it's crazy because there are certain things that just needed to happen for CM Punk to return. He had the issues with AEW and then the whole thing with Vince McMahon. And I think that all led into CM Punk finally returning. where Triple H and CM Punk could bury the hatchet and become pretty happy together. And seeing all the good things that he's doing in WWE right now. Not only is he having a great feud with Drew McIntyre, but there are so many reports of people being pleased and happy with him in the backstage area, which is very, very important. So to have him back and be supportive and helping everybody in the back, it's awesome to hear and it's awesome to see. And that is one of the best returns of all time when you put it into consideration with all the circumstances and everything that had to happen in order for him to return. So those are my top 10 returns of all time. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your favorite returns are, because we all got different tastes. We all have different preferences on what we like. So let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you next one. Peace.